Hey, Julie.
Hello.
Good afternoon. How are you today?
I'm good.
Yeah. So, the last few podcasts have been a pretty awesome birth series. We've had the pleasure of being able to talk to all of you moms out there and dads. So, the title of this podcast is called After Birth. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Prime Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Skip Wyss, and I am with my wonderful and beautiful co host, Dr. Julie Wyss. How are you today, Mrs. Fairy Fingers?
I'm good.
Yeah, how's everything going in the BDC certified coaching world and working with all these businesses out there?
It's crazy and overwhelming, but it's awesome.
Yeah, you having a lot of fun doing it?
Yes.
I have been having an absolute wonderful time watching you grow, expand, work with all these doctors out there and community members. It's been fun to see. So today we're going to be talking about post-birth. So the afterbirth, the afterglow with mama. And what can we do from a patient, doctor perspective, and community perspective to help our moms help get through birth even easier post-birth. I think postpartum care is something that is sometimes neglected, overlooked at times, or everybody just focuses directly on baby and doesn't take time to focus on the mom. So we're going to start off first talking about the mom.
I say as soon as that baby is out, it's forget about mom. It's all about baby, which baby is just as important. But like you mentioned, postpartum. I don't think anybody talks about postpartum.
They don't.
And to think that you have, it could be your first baby. It could be like we talk in multiples, 7th or 8th baby. Each pregnancy, each delivery, postpartum is different for each baby.
Mm-hmm.
And you could be like the peak of health, your nutrition's on point, exercise. You could have an amazing support group around you that is not going to keep you from not getting postpartum depression.
Okay, so we're going to go that route first. So depression, right?
Important.
No, I think it's incredibly important. I 100% important. So what are some checks that we can be doing to check in on mom about postpartum depression, baby blues? It's something that is strongly overlooked.
Yeah, I think just understanding it, that I think everybody goes through it.
Okay.
Everybody goes through it at different, if you want to say percent or how much it affects
Kind
them.
of severity.
Yeah, but
Okay.
But I think everybody goes through it. But I think mom needs to understand that, okay, it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we don't know the severity. And as long as dad, I think, or that other partner or somebody within that support group at least knows the things to maybe look for, because a lot of times a mom doesn't actually know that that's what's happening.
Okay, that makes total sense, because I'm always, when I'm talking with dad, partner, spouse, is how is mom doing? How are things going at home? Is she getting sleep? What has the demeanor been around the child? And so what are some very easy things from your perspective, Dr. Julie, that, number one, let's start with mom. What can mom look out for? And then we'll go to partner. So what are some feelings mom needs to be aware of?
Oh, if you're there, there's a feeling of overwhelm, right? If you're a new mom, existing mom, right? There's always going to be those things that I can't keep up on things. I'm being, just overwhelmed with life in general. That's, I would say, maybe baseline. It gets to the point of, well, I don't care anymore.
Okay.
Baby's gonna be crying and we're not, relating to it, or it doesn't evoke any type of emotion within you. And it's different even like when you have support and I think that's a struggle that many moms don't actually know what it looks like, what it feels like. But if all of a sudden you're feeling disconnected, and if that's to the rest of the family, if that's to your baby, if that's to your spouse, if you're just kind of like, I don't know what's going on, but I don't feel like myself, I think those are all those like something's not right. It doesn't mean that maybe we need to do a medication or, that is potentially the route. But that is for some cases of maybe it's been going on for so long that we need to have those other options. But I think first it's having the check-in, and then when everybody asks, well, what can I help you with? And you say, I'm fine. You need to step into that.
The 4-letter F word.
Yep. You need to step into that and be like, anything, if you can just come, like help me with the laundry, or you know what, just come and just be at the house so I can take a nap, or if I can shower. Sometimes those are those things that as a mom is all that it's needed, or somebody just to like come over and maybe just sit next to you, and you even have to have a conversation, but just to know that somebody else is there.
Yeah, and I can see the passion, the worry in your eyes, because I've known that you've dealt with this, and I think a lot of moms take it to the extreme where a mom doesn't have postpartum depression if they haven't thought about taking their life, killing their baby, doing something to end life versus just cope and deal with life. And I think that a lot of the times it can go well past the 6-week to 6-month barrier post-birth.
And that's where I think that's where there's the misconception of you have baby and it starts immediately.
Yeah.
Because it's like lots of times, like you go in for your 6-week checkup and everything is good.
Generally,
and
it
then
is for a lot of
because like
moms.
some moms are looking forward to that, like, okay, we can check off everything's good for the
check off the 6-week mark
to check that off, and then that's all of a sudden when things start to change. So I don't like when there's ever a time frame around it, because you can be months out and then all of a sudden the whole world is going to come crashing down on you. Maybe because you were able to keep it together for that long, and finally you're just like, I can't do it anymore.
That makes sense. That's where I think from a dad's perspective and a spouse's perspective, I need to be super aware of that. But it's that I think a big thing for our moms to really be in the public to be really aware of is that disconnect. So as a parent, one of the things that I notice from a provider's perspective and being a parent is that when I have a mom that comes in and she's bringing in baby for colic or acid reflux or something that's really been driving a wedge between them, it's traumatic to all parties involved, mom, dad, family, when a baby's sick or not doing well, and mom puts the baby down and completely disconnects, where I don't see any sort of emotional change to baby
flat.
Crying anymore. Mom's very flat. Flat affect is something that a lot of people talk about. A flat affect, ladies and gentlemen, is when somebody's face is just flat. Some people would look at that as a massive like resting bee face on women, but it's not even that. It's just flat. It's emotionless. And sometimes when you see people that are medicated to help with their trauma or to help with their depression, they'll get a very flat affect too, which is not okay. But we need to be really aware of that. And when mom has that massive emotional disconnect, my number one question that I ask moms a lot is, when baby cries, do you get not worked up, but do you notice it? Do you feel a feeling inside of your body of an emotional response? Hopefully not bad, but what is the emotional response? Is it concern? Is it a need to help? Is it a need of overwhelm? Like, oh my God, my kid's crying again. I don't want to deal with this. Is it a feeling of sometimes hatred towards the baby, which is not okay, which we need to be aware of, because no parent should ever feel a sense of regret towards their child that the child's now here. But I commonly see that because baby comes in now, and now that baby's around, life changed. The time away with your spouse doesn't exist anymore. You have somebody in your life now that needs you literally 24/7. And that can be incredibly daunting.
Or alienating, depending upon what your age group is and who and what your circle looks like. But again, it's not I feel like we totally if we dove right into this, but it shouldn't be like a depressing conversation.
No.
There just needs to be conversation around it, because this happens. And so I think that's the biggest thing that, like, we talk about, getting that birth plan together. Postpartum, like that discussion needs to be a part of it. And I like, that's where I like when I do my postpartum class, it's like, if you have a baby, you're postpartum forever because you got to have a baby. So the postpartum period, like, it just changes and evolves as your children grow, because your children grow, they're going to need different things from you, but that also changes you as a mom.
Yeah.
So you're always postpartum.
Yeah, you never go back to your 20s, like your early. It just doesn't work like that. And it's the same thing for the dads involved, the spouses that are involved. Things are going to evolve and change. And when a child is super sick too for a mom, it can be super, super tough. And it can be really hard, especially the other side of it is now that we've kind of went down the emotional, mental route that can be actually sometimes does need medication. As a chiropractor, that makes my skin crawl literally to say that, but it does. Sometimes when we need to actually change the chemical makeup that has happened in a mom, when neurotransmitters change, when a lot of things change, sometimes a SSRI is needed for a short period of time.
Sometimes we need that just to get over the hump, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, for a short period of time.
Because we need that help and assistance for us to be able to give us that time to regather our thoughts and get things together and realize, oh, it's just really one step at a time. And then we can go into, what does a newborn really truly need?
Newborns need to eat, sleep, and poop.
That's it.
They need love. They need coddling. Yeah. They need nurturing. But they need to eat, sleep, and poop. So what are some signs now as a parent? Let's arm our mom and dads out there in our community as how can we help keep the child healthy? Because an unhealthy child, an unchecked child, an unchecked nervous system leads to a lot of problems with the child as they grow up, especially in those first 6 months of life. And it can be very concerning, but number one, can be the number one problem when we're dealing with a parent, with a mom that could be postpartum or a dad that's trying to deal with baby blues as well, because this happens in men too, can be the number one driver in those aspects of overwhelm, is a child that's not doing well. So from your perspective, Dr. Julie, I mean, you're an expert on this. You're an expert on breastfeeding. You're very good at it. You were good with our 2 kids, but you provide our moms a ton of strength, a ton of educational knowledge. What are some things then that moms can look for that are choosing to breastfeed and or bottle feed to know that that child's nervous system, or that there may be an interruption or an irritation that's causing that child to not function normally right away?
Well, breastfeeding in itself is, I mean, it's difficult. But I think with anything, you need to allow yourself, like when you first maybe learn to ride a bike, it takes time and it takes trial. And it's when mom gets worked up and stressed, that feeds off of baby. And then baby's just going to get as upset and frustrated. And then you're both going to be feeding off each other. But breastfeeding, like if you're struggling with different positions and baby just doesn't feel right, that's where a big part of what we like to do is, do we want to do the little activity of?
Sure, you can take it wherever you want.
So like, and this could happen like typically immediately after birth, if a baby can't turn their head one side to the other, if they can't look at you, and you're always like, they're always over here on this side, that just means like they can't physically turn their head. So they're always looking right, or they're always looking left. Something's wrong, right? Okay. And so that's where chiropractic is super important. But if we go down to breastfeeding and latch, it could be the same thing if it's bottle fed, if it's, dribbling out of their mouth a lot, if they're really messy, or if it's loud, if they're constantly lots of clicking, sucking and clicking. And so we do this with our moms, that if you would take your finger and you tuck it behind your ear, and you can feel that little ridge back there, and then if you try to open your mouth, and if that finger is there, it's really difficult for you to open your mouth. So think of how that translates to your baby, and maybe that's why they can't latch. And so that's where that upper bone in the neck, when we adjust, that's what then allows that jaw to finally be able to open. So then baby can effectively breastfeed. And if that was like one side was better than the other side, now it's going to be amazing, the journey, the breastfeeding journey, even the bottle feeding, of how much easier that will be on the baby to be able to get that nutrition, but then also cut down, because if we have latch issues, it's really affecting the tummy.
It affects both of you too.
Absolutely.
Yep. And that's a big thing too, is like having that skin to skin, that latch, that connection between mom and baby. And I do seriously empathize with all of my moms out there that cannot breastfeed, that do have issues where maybe production didn't work or baby couldn't latch. So mom was basically forced to quit due to pain, due to chapping, cracking, bruising. Like nobody wants that. And then mom's having to deal with that. It's just really, really super hard. So then you immediately get this disconnect. But what I found with a lot of my moms that breastfeed, their postpartum is way down, because they get that interaction with baby, but it's a chemical interaction. It's way beyond just the look at your child, you get a full change.
Just the duty of being
well, the
able to
neurotransmitters change, the dopamine changes, the serotonin changes, all the feel-good chemicals in the body change when you breastfeed, let alone the oxytocin and prolactin release. Now that's getting a little science saying, but it's true. So what do we do with that is that if we cannot have that skin-to-skin, mouth to breast tissue contact with the child, how can we help moms get through that? And number one is make sure that feeding experience is as positive as possible, even if it has to come down to bottles. But favoring one breast over the other during breastfeeding is another massive thing for a baby and a mom to understand, because if there's upper neck irritation at the base of that skull, you just hit on this. But if they're favoring one breast over the other as well versus looking in one direction over the other, breast favoritism is another thing where they latch well on the right, they won't latch well on the left, or vice versa. Or if you cannot cross cradle baby on both sides, or you have to cross cradle one side and do a football hold on the other. These are all things we see all the time, which are seen as common, but that doesn't make them normal. And that is a big thing. Or okay, because that leads to a myriad of a myriad of symptoms, changing that child's health from that point forward. And then you went on and talked about gut health, which is huge, because where's the first place we start digesting food?
In your mouth.
In the mouth, exactly. So if baby can't latch properly on a bottle or a breast, and I see this all the time too with moms, it's very common to have them go through multiple nipple sizes when they're picking out bottles for their baby, and they'll go through 12 different bottles trying to figure out what fits their child's mouth, which is very true, because a nipple isn't made the same, whether it's human tissue or rubberized tissue. But even more with rubberized tissue, it can't form to the mouth, where a nipple actually will form to the mouth and have a baby with better latch. But go through numbers and numbers of bottles, not finding the right one, and then trying to figure out what's going on.
It's not a bottle issue.
It's not a bottle issue. No, it can be a massive emotional issue too, where if that child's causing you lots of stress, they feel that stress. They can still hear your heartbeat. They can still smell you. They can't see you that well. You're basically a shape in a blob, but they can smell you. They know who you are from your tone, your scent, the way your voice sounds, the way your heart beats. I think it's amazing what these little God's creations are, number one. But number two is their full insight into how it changes the mom and how you work as moms out there and how your bodies function. It's just absolutely huge. And these little ones that are now born that are completely dependent on you, you get to provide some of the most amazing resources in life that they possibly can have, right?
Absolutely. And I was just thinking, that's all magical, and the dishes and the laundry can just wait.
They can just wait. They're not going anywhere. That child is. Dishes will just be there, and that as a mom sometimes. But if you're this is another thing though. If you're a person that is extremely obsessive over how your house looks, over organization, those are things that will drive you nuts. So you may need the space just to organize, which means dads, spouses, partners, it's time for you to step up and take that baby, go on walks, get them out of the house. They don't need to be around the mom 24/7. Mama needs a break. Daddy and spouse need to step up and take it and give a break. Because you know what, guys? It pays off for us because we earn points in that relationship, I'm telling you. And it allows mom to get back into her zone of normalcy, her zone of zen, which could be cleaning, which could be organizing the house. Like some moms find that extremely therapeutic, and some dads find it therapeutic too. I love to vacuum. Yeah, don't. She knows that, and that's a big thing though. Is like I like to do that kind of stuff, but those are areas of zen that I like as well. So let's talk. Can we talk really quick about anatomy? Can we talk breast tissue?
Sure.
I love talking breast tissue. Let's be honest, because I think it's a massive indicator into how well that baby's latching. So can we talk about nipple shape? Can you go into that a little bit versus flattening versus lipstick shape versus rounded? You don't want to? I'm talking nipples. Okay, so nipple shape is a big one for you moms out there. Nipple shape is massive when we talk about breastfeeding because it's a good indicator as to how well that baby latches.
Proper latch.
Yeah, proper latch. How should a nipple be shaped if there's proper latch? Proper latch. Latch. Nice. Proper latch.
We're going to talk tongue ties instead?
No, I want to talk nipple shape first. How should it be shaped? It should be rounded.
It should be rounded. And so sometimes the comment is if you think you can't breastfeed is my nipple is too small or it's too large, it's inverted. Some of those things all come into play.
Inversion will.
But you should have a rounded nipple of when it goes into the baby's mouth and also when it comes out of the baby's mouth.
It should come out the same shape as it went in. It may come out a little bit larger. It may come out. It should be have saliva on it. Like that's a big thing. Yeah. Now, what if it comes out flattened?
Well, then we know that we have a tongue palate issue.
Okay, and what if it comes out commonly? Most women comes out lipstick shaped, which is actually the worst shape to have.
Absolutely. So, and then that's where you're going to notice like the leaking out of the sides of the mouth, pinching. And you're pinching, and that's where it's like, oh, it's so painful, or I get bloody chapped nipples. Well, lots of times it's coming down to that proper latch. So sometimes we can reposition baby, but that's not ultimately always going to solve the true problem of what's going on. Lots of times it comes to the mouth and to the tongue and the palate shape for that baby. And
I might get a little flack on this, but I'm going to say it. If we change baby's latch position, it doesn't exactly change latch. So what I mean by that is that if we change the position, it doesn't take away the fact that we could have a tongue tie issue or an interoral problem where it could be alignment of the cranial bones, which is where chiropractors come into play. It could be a soft tissue issue, which is still where chiropractors come into play, or people that have to do tissue work could possibly need to be referred out for a frenectomy, which is a removal of the lip and tongue ties. I believe sometimes that is done too much now, when it never used to be done as nearly as much, where people just go to cut now instead of just evaluate. But also understanding that latch frequency, how well they latch on there, and just understanding the root reflexes as well. Babies should come over onto the nipple. They should be able to target.
Our babies have certain reflexes and they're there for a reason. So sometimes like we'll notice and like, why are they doing that? And you think it's funny, but like that is survival. And so if your child if you would touch the side of their mouth and if they don't go towards your finger, because that's typically where that nipple is going to come into the mouth, they don't have that, that's really alarming. Like there's a serious concern.
It's a sign of nervous irritation. It's a sign of nerve root irritation. Because those reflexes are in your baby from 23 weeks old, developing in you, mama. And then when they're born at 37 to 40 weeks, that's when those reflexes fully come online and are fully drivable and integrated. And if we come back real quick to just changing a position with baby, if we change the position, it doesn't necessarily change the problem underneath.
No, it just makes it feel more comfortable in the interim until we can figure out what's going on.
Well, think of it like low back pain for my moms out there postpartum that deal with a lot of low back issues. Just because you changed the position in your seat, which made your low back pain maybe slightly go away or change, doesn't necessarily mean it changed the problem, the underlying issue that's going on in your pelvis and in your low back. So we need to keep that into consideration when we're talking about latch as well with baby. This has been a pretty kick-butt conversation, and we're going to two-part this for sure, because I think there's tons and tons of information to put out there about breastfeeding, latch, support, different formulas. So I'm going to challenge you moms that are listening and dads, please comment below and leave comments. Go to our Facebook pages. You can find us at Prime Podcast. You can find us at Prime Family Clinics. You can find us on YouTube, where you can go and watch the video of this as well, where Dr. Julie's giving some pretty good demonstrations and laughs, and of course looks at me when I'm talking about breast tissue and nipple shape. But leave us comments below and ask us questions, because we want to answer them for you. This is a resource. This is what this show is all about. This is the Prime Podcast, and we absolutely love it. Dr. Julie, do you have anything else you'd like to add today?
I do not.
Nope. Okay, so you all go out there, get it done. Have a great week. Bye, everyone.